Hello, my name is Brian Marshall, here at the Fort Valley State University, fall semester 2021. Today I will be doing a presentation based off of unreported police brutality. Hello, my name is Brian Marshall, and I'm doing a presentation on unreported police brutality involving minorities. I'm a senior at Fort Valley State University, and this is for my research method class, fall 2021. This is the introduction. Despite the high number of individuals from minority communities being victims of police brutality, only a few are reported. Despite the Black and Latinos making a minority percentage of the population, they experience the impact of police brutality. Police brutality will be defined for this study as unwarranted, extreme, and violent physiological, mental, and psychological abuse, far beyond law, which would also include repetitive and baseless contact committed by a person or groups of individuals and enforcement agencies. The purpose of this research. The purpose of this research aims to study the impact of police brutality on minorities in the community and the unreported cases. Participants in this research. In this research involved a survey of a stratified random sample comprising roughly 1,000 municipal, county, and state law enforcement agencies. The demographics of this research targeted Black or Hispanic males between the age groups of 21 and 35 and 50 and 65 during 2019. Now, I chose these age groups, especially 20 to 35, because these days they may experience a little bit more police brutality. Well, I take that back. They might experience as much as someone who's 50 to 65 years old now, back when they were 21, 35. So their views would be somewhat different between the younger generation and the older generation. Procedures on how participants will be surveyed. This process involves mailing surveys to respondents, mostly because when it comes to police brutality in small minority communities, everybody knows each other. That whether it be law enforcement with the locals knowing law enforcement. So by using the mailing survey, everybody pretty much remains private, and they can just mail in their surveys. Now, you also run into instances where you have people who don't want to participate, being in small communities, being minorities, because they don't want to be targeted. So they just ignore the mail. So what we do is we send out another mail responder 2 weeks later. So a follow-up through the mailing was dispatched to the non-respondents after 2 weeks, just to see if we can get them to cooperate or at least volunteer to participate in the survey. This is a research question. This research aims to answer the question, why are the cases of police brutality in minority communities, especially African Americans, many yet only a few are reported? What does this study and research reveal? The study conducted an investigation on the number of Black men in the United States who were unarmed and yet were shot and killed by the police from 2011 and 2016. Cited Angus and Crenchlow, 2018. The cases that were sampled illustrated that the police officers in these killings were all acquitted. This article utilized the critical race theory to show the effect of racism and discrimination in the institutional structure of police. There's also data that was collected. The data about this police brutality illustrates that the United States accounted for 13% of global deaths by police, while it only has 4% of the population. That's a small percentage, only 4% of the population. globally. The majority of the brutality in the minority communities of blacks, indigenous, and Hispanic people. Note, these are all minorities, black, indigenous, and Hispanic people. What does this study and research reveal? Continuation. The conflict theory on police brutality states the specific segments of society benefit disproportionately from the economic and social arrangement. Hence, the government has the use of coercive force to maintain the equality. Now, if you go back and read this section, it said, hence, the government has the use of coercive force to maintain inequality. So, basically what they're saying is that they're basically trained to use this type of force to maintain inequality. So it doesn't matter if you're a Latino, black, or indigenous person, they're trained based off of what you look like to use this type of force to maintain inequality. The hypothesis. The number of police brutality cases being disproportionate in the minority community result in many of the issues of police brutality being unreported. There's also an independent variable here. The independent variable is brutality of the police, while the dependable variable is reporting of the cases of cruelty. Now, you have two different entities here. You have police brutality, and you have the non-reporting of the cases of cruelty. It's a difference between cruelty and police brutality. In some senses, it is. These are the works cited. Angus J. and Crenchlow, 2018, A Race and a Power Perspective on Police Brutality in America. That's also Mitchell, 2000, the Student National Medical Association Police Brutality Position Statement, retrieved March 10, 2007. Are there any questions? If there aren't any questions, I would like to elaborate a little bit on the research that was found. Is heavily saturated in small communities with African Americans, Black, Brown, Latinos, and indigenous people, meaning American Indians as well, that police brutality is more than likely unreported. And more so back then, this research is based off of 2019. The day and age of technology and people have cell phones right now has kind of like subsided the numbers or lowered the numbers a little bit on unreported police brutality, because police brutality can really be recorded by someone. Case in point, the young lady in the George Floyd case. Everything may not have been reported had not she been there. The officers, arresting officers that were involved, the 3 officers involved, they may not have put in their police report everything that happened that day, but luckily she was an unsung hero, well, a sung hero there that day with her cell phone. So she has more details than they may have put in their police report. Not saying that the whole report wouldn't have been reported, but it would have been details left out. So it's very important that we do our due diligence in serving our community as well, not just letting the police be the basis of serving our community. Sometimes these things go unreported, but as long as we have these handy-dandy devices in our hand, we can make a difference. Again, I open the floor and anybody has any more questions. Okay? Thank you for listening to my presentation. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?